Howdy, friends. Hello, old friends. Some of you may already know me. For others, this is the first time you may recall meeting me. But I can promise you this won't be the last time you hear from me or about these topics. For you see, I bring valuable insights from the future. I'm returning from the post-artificial intelligence world to share precisely how AI impacts the legal industry. The first thing to remember about artificial intelligence is that it simply reflects back what has already existed. So it requires genuine intelligence from you and your team members to direct it to do anything. The best way to enlighten yourself here and make sure AI stays worthwhile for your law firm is to actually use it, to see with your own eyes, ears, and fingers how incredibly wonderful it can be, but also near useless. Now, the most important thing to remember is that the AI uprising started because... So, without much further ado, let's jump into things. Of the systems I want to talk about, there's 8 categories in particular. The first being talent management. Recruiting, onboarding, and evaluating your talent, absolutely critical. It's not necessarily the first thing you might be thinking about when trying to have a more efficient, client-centric law firm, but it really is essential. Because while you can try to do everything yourselves, to best serve your client, delegating the work to good talent, that's going to be critical for you. Outside of that is going to be matter management systems. Because similarly, delegation, that's clearly documented, reporting on what's been done, what's not been done, and how efficiently has it been done, and then tying that back to your finances through your matter management, absolutely critical. For contact management, that's another type of systems where you're going to be putting all your details about clients, prospective folks, and then evangelists who are singing your praises. Outside of that, you're going to have some media management systems, your website, event systems, social networks, and I'll talk about why I believe email is the best. The 5th category of systems that are valuable are going to be knowledge management systems, templates, documented processes, and cultural touchstones that are cemented and reinforced across your organization. From there, we'll get into the rote and non-fun stuff of file management, process integrations, and then security. All very valuable, even if not the most exciting. Communication systems internally with colleagues and then with the world at large for your reputation, absolutely worth paying attention to. And last but not least, some of my favorite are productivity systems. How you execute on your work, how you match and pair your ambitions with what can actually be done, and then what can you automate to be more productive. So a quick about me. I work both at a law firm doing legal innovation as well as the co-founder of my own marketing and operations agency called Approachable Systems. So let's first recap some important ethical considerations and avoid pitfalls that go with those. And 3 to consider are communications, timeliness, and execution. Communications, Maryland Rule 19-301.4 requires timely and consistent communication. So that is part willpower, but that's also part intelligent system build out there in terms of making it easy to communicate with clients about matters, even if there isn't an update. Making it easy for staff to help you communicate with your clients. You can shame yourself for as long as you want in terms of cognitive overload from a variety of clients you may or may not have an immediate update for and feeling overwhelmed in that email inbox. But with some systems and with just this gentle reminder, you can avoid that pitfall of Maryland Rule 19301.4 for communication requirements. Next one being timeliness. Timeliness is, again, something that you can beat yourself up with, or you can take a look at the systems that support you for that, the people that support you with that. And so a calendar and deadline management, I mean, those are most likely being done by everyone here. I really do hope that calendar management is being done for you with systems and people help, and for yourself, that it's working for you. But there's things that you can do to go beyond that, because a calendar event is a specific time when something is due, a deadline. But there's going to be other milestones that you want to mark with tasks in terms of checking in with the client, making sure a draft is done, reviewed, and then eventually finalized before that deadline. So again, calendar systems, very nuanced. Support with those, very worthwhile. And not missing deadlines will make sure you don't get client complaints or malpractice complaints. The execution, because again, as lawyers, the willpower is certainly there. It might not always be something static for all of you. It might be more dynamic, like it is for me. But execution is not something that should be related to motivation. It should be related to discipline. And again, systems and strategies can help you with that. And one example of that is going to be attorney trust accounts. This is one of the most common ways that attorneys face discipline, because their trust accounts aren't documented properly. And again, you can try to shoulder that burden yourself, or you can use systems and or people to help you with that. And we'll go over some of those in the matter management section in a little bit more detail. So with those three areas in terms of ethics underpinning all of what we're going to talk about today, hopefully you'll see that there's some real immediate value you can take away from this in terms of what you can implement easily from the templates I'm going to share and other items that are involved with this. So the last note here is nothing is one size fits all. Some clients like calling, some emailing, some texting. You got to figure that out for yourself and for them, because it's what you're comfortable with, and most importantly, what you're actually going to execute on. So talent management. Break this down into recruiting, onboarding, and evaluating. So with recruiting, the system you're going to want to be thinking about is the applicant tracking system that you use. I'd recommend not using just email labels and tags for that, but that is one option. I would recommend an actual applicant tracking system like Recruity. I'm going to use that in this example here because that's something that's relatively inexpensive, but it provides a lot of quality of life features, both from the compliance and ethical standpoint, as well as just nice to have things that'll make sure that records aren't lost and that requests from candidates are honored the best way possible. And you can also easily get other team members involved so that, again, you're not shouldering that burden alone. So with an ATS, a lot of different options there, but picking one, using it, that's the most important part. And then with that, a good system will help guide you through what you need to do here. So some of the templates that I can share that some systems helped me with, others I developed over time, are position qualification sheet, as well as team responsibilities, whether it's just yourself or your team. Actually putting what you want from a candidate will help keep you on track, because there's going to be recency bias. There's going to be a whole host of reasons why at the end of interviewing 10 plus candidates, you're going to have trouble discerning who was the best. And so position qualifications is a really good way to start with that. And with that, you can also start formulating interview questions. I've got some of my favorite also put into a template that will be shared at this link. So with that, you're identifying the right talent, you're getting everyone internally aligned, and you're keeping those interviews consistent. And so with promotion, promoting it widely. Sometimes an inside track candidate is the best, a referral from a friend. Tons of ways to get good candidates, but casting a wide net and using an ATS, an applicant tracking system, will help you with that promotion by pushing it into search engine results, as well as potentially letting you easily share with folks in your organization a finder's fee to incentivize them to help share good candidates and recruit on your behalf. Then you can always use a recruiter too. So now let's jump to onboarding. You've brought that person on, and now we got to get them up to speed. The way I like to break it down system-wise is 3 different sets of processes. There's day 1 through 30. There's day 30 through 90. As we know, 90, that's when you make the decision if you want to cut them off. And then 90 to 180 plus. By those points, you should have a good grip on how they're adapting to the position, if they're a good fit, and again, that magical 90-day number, if you have to make a decision to part ways for the best of everyone. So with that, checklists, again, are going to help out a lot with that, making sure that you have the equipment right, the software set up, permissions, and then other team members assisting and in the loop for this new team member that's going to join your team. So with that, one thing I absolutely just can't get away from, it seems cheesy, it seems superfluous, but core values that you've thought long and hard about. These are North Stars that can help align candidates to what you value in your workplace, but at the same time, it's something that's been explicitly stated prior to joining, when they join, and then when it comes time to evaluate talent, what those metrics are boiled down into a couple core values. What do we prize the most in our employees, in our team members, and how do we get that out of them? So core values, can't say enough about those. You can see purchasable systems there. Again, I've given them good long thought because those are things that are not going to change for us in the foreseeable future. And then with that, some mentorship. Again, you don't have to do everything, shadowing you. It's a simple way to look at it, but giving them a wider kind of breadth of experience from other team members, whether it's members of the billing department, reception and intake, or other practice areas. Giving them that wide view will help them have additional peers to lean on if they're uncomfortable bringing it up with you or their supervisor. And it also helps with delegation to other departments, realizing that the billing department, while not fun when dealing with a client that's not paying, they are your allies and they can help you if you work together with that. So again, mentorship and connecting with other peers, very, very valuable there. So now when it comes time to evaluation, we could jump straight to annual performance evaluations, which is what a lot of folks do, because it is time consuming. It's often paired with compensation changes. So performance evaluations are important. But before getting to that, I want to go over the concept of one-to-one meetings. So a one-to-one meeting is something that recurs every 1 to 4 weeks. I usually change the cadence from that first 0 to 30, 30 to 90, the 90 plus. I usually change the cadence starting more frequent, going less frequent, but this is a up to 60-minute meeting between the employee and the supervisor, and it's that employee's time, dedicating time slot for them, giving them an avenue to bring up things for you where you can remove roadblocks and support them for long-term goals. You can also have your own agenda, but I strongly recommend putting that burden on them to come with an agenda so that if they truly do want to grow with you, with your team, then they will have an agenda that you'll be able to go through with them, identify those roadblocks, and remove them. So if you're doing that, then you're going to have good rapport. You're going to be able to give good feedback. And so when it comes time for that performance evaluation, there's going to be nothing shocking. You will have given them suggestions. You will have given them reprimands or any other course correction they needed there. So when it comes time to that performance evaluation, with that, I similarly like to structure it in a way that shares the responsibility there. And so that's first asking the employee on, so it's a 4-part process for me. The first part being, employee, what went well? What could be even better? What do you want to try and accomplish? Seeing that from their perspective, having that prior to you starting to do your evaluation will be incredibly helpful. And then from there, for part 2, I like to ask their peers and other coworkers, what's it like working with them? What are they good at? What can they be even better with? Because for a supervisor to say something, it's one thing, and hopefully they will be responsive, but to hear a repeating theme from anyone that they interact with, that's very powerful. And again, it helps share that responsibility. So you as the supervisor, you as the leader of the law firm, you don't have to do it all yourself. And again, with that, something I absolutely love is those core values. They come back up. It's a surprise to no one, and it's a shorthand way of referring to very complex topics. So, strongly recommend doing those again. And then with that, hopefully you never have to do it, but actually let me retract that. I hope that you do have to do this, because I hope everyone understands that nobody bats 1,000, as they say in baseball. You're going to miss some things. Everyone's imperfect. So if it ever reaches a point where you need formal, documented plans for how to address the shortcoming, a PIP, a performance improvement plan, many of you probably already know it. So again, have a template. Don't be afraid to use it, because poor performers are not only hurting you, your law firm, but they're hurting themselves too, because they're stuck in some sort of rut, and allowing them to continue doing that isn't doing them a service either, or your client. Okay, now to jump over to matter management. I will say, from my previous life, you'll find a lot of rich material in project management, if you think of it that way. Matter management, there's some slight differences, but by and large, it's the delegation of responsibilities in tasks for clients, and then it's reporting on the results of those. Who's been accomplishing what remains to be done still, and then tying that back to the finances, making sure that the work you're doing is properly being collected on so that you're being profitable. The goal of a law firm in many ways. So for matter management, a case management or matter management system like Clio, Rocket Matter, Practice Panther, Smokeball, Action Steps, so many different ones. Clio is one of my favorites, so I'm going to be using that in the examples there, but it organizes information and makes communicating collaboratively with clients and with team members much, much easier. Tasking out your work. If you're not doing that, I don't know how you sleep at night, because my mind will keep wandering if it's not documented, deadlined, and delegated to somebody where and when possible. So tasking out your work, you can create repeatable task lists, such as when onboarding a new client. If you stop reinventing that wheel, it'll mean more consistency, more refinement, and higher quality work for that client that's being done a lot faster. So then with that, reporting on this. Matter management is so very important. So data visualization, you in essence have a giant spreadsheet of client name, their matters, and a whole bunch of details about them in terms of what type of matter it is, how much they've paid up front for a retainer, how much they owe you for work in progress, all that different information. And so the tools do a decent job. Again, I'm going to pick on Clio here, where their reporting's okay. It's getting certainly better. But I find this the same for most every tool that I use. It never quite works the way an organization precisely wants it. Every organization has their own unique DNA, their own blueprint, their own wants and preferences and styles. So with that, taking that data out of the systems shouldn't be hard. Clio again, using them as an example, very simple to extract that. Lots of different ways to do that. And so if you can pull that out, you can visualize that in a way that makes it easy for your firm to report on it, and most importantly, analyze it. Because the way it was taught to me, the way I want to go over it here, is that you collect information, you're putting it into a system, whether it's a spreadsheet or something like Clio, and then you have to transform that into a report at some point. That big table of data, you gotta boil it down to say what happened the last 2 weeks, what happened in the quarter, what about for this person, what about that person, compare time periods. So you gotta get your reports together there. But if you're spending too much time on those, then the most valuable piece, analyzing, you're gonna overlook that. So, or again, run out of gas, run out of time for that. But that's where you should be spending 80% of your time reviewing and discussing what intuitions that the data is supporting or contradicting. So again, collect should be simple, report shouldn't be too hard, and then that analysis, that is where the real gold is, and that is where having some data visualization reports built around your data can really, really, really help. So then with that, the finance portion of it, making it easy to pay from that matter management software, most of them do a great job of that, but aligning your invoices with client communications, ensuring the invoices are being properly reviewed by the team so that you are getting that number right and the client doesn't have to go back and forth with you, and then integrating those payments with your billing software to track client balances right alongside the work in progress. So if there's somebody who's not paying, until you resolve that, you can focus on clients who are paying you. So a lot of custom fields I would suggest for partitioning out your billing process, because again, different strokes for different folks, especially for different matters, a lot of different ways to do that. But having good systems that tie together that billing and finance information with the work in progress, work that's completed, work that's coming in, absolutely invaluable. Let's talk contacts, because while a matter is something incredibly important for doing the work for the client, sometimes there's multiple clients, sometimes there's opposing parties, sometimes there's other folks with some sort of relation to a matter. And so contacts need to be separately recorded. They need to be linked to matters. But again, sometimes you got some folks that have no relation to matters. They are prospective employees. They are prospective clients that didn't hire you. Or they're evangelists, people that absolutely love you because you did great work for them, or perhaps because you met them at an event and you liked what they were saying, and so you're happy to recommend them to others. So your evangelists, your prospectives, and your clients. Contact management for those folks is absolutely essential. So let's dive into what that looks like there. So for it, I like to look at it at what is necessary ethically for our requirements as attorneys. What do you have to do? So again, systems will help you with that. Clio breaks it into Clio Grow, which is your contact management, and then Clio Manage, which is your matter management. But there's other great systems, some dedicated specifically to contact management like HubSpot, which will help with email marketing and a whole bunch of other automations, if that is something that is of interest to you. So what is that necessary contact info, though? For that name correctly spelled, legal name, making sure that's documented. Then from there, phone numbers, email addresses, mailing addresses, and then again, what related matters, companies is that contact associated with. So if you have a conflict, you can see what it might be and determine what you might need to do there. And again, with that, you can communicate with your contacts, whether it is clients or evangelists, And you can do that very effectively if you have them in a system organized in the right way. So that necessary stuff, and then what I think is, more than nice to have, rather essential if you want to do things in a scalable way, is going to be some other grouping info. Some of it's going to be native fields. Sometimes you got to make some custom fields that suit how you want to have this group of contacts kind of taken and grouped up. So practice group, billing exceptions, do not contact, such as if they're deceased, and then invoice preference, all kinds of information there you're going to want to build out about these contacts. So because that, again, makes it easy for staff and reporting to be able to pull the right sets of data to do the right actions for the right people at the right time. So perspectives, they're going to be a little bit different there than client records, where you are going to have that billing information, other data there. With them, again, name for perspectives, email, phone, all that's going to be largely the same there. And then other essential grouping information, nice to haves. Again, what kind of practice area topic did they inquire about? Are they a good prospective employee for joining a certain practice group? What stage of the follow-up process did they reach out? You never had any contact? Was there some back and forth contact? Was there a determination that they did not want to hire you for some reason? Versus, again, just kind of the communications going cold there. It's really good to have that information spelled out and attached to these contact records, because you're going to be able to do a lot with that, with your communications, with your reporting there. And so again, if we look at evangelists, it's going to be largely the same things. We're going to want to call them by their correct name. We're going to want to be able to give them a phone call at a number they're going to pick up at, email them at an address they prefer, and then see what other related contacts, companies, and matters are associated with them. Hello again. AI also had a dramatic impact on contact management, in that if you established patterns, it was able to help you. But again, I caution you that some patterns take an almost illogical leap of reasoning that only genuine intelligence can help you with. So with AI, beware using it for things like conflict checks. And then for the creative fields, with the artists' unrest, there was a great shift in how content was created. But there were issues with the bland, soulless AI creations. And so with that, if you want to stand out from the crowd, artificial intelligence will help you quickly blend in. But to stand out, you need genuine intelligence producing actual creative campaigns. Okay, now to get into some of the items that are most creative, most fun, especially for me, somebody with a marketing background, it's going to be your media management. And we're going to talk primarily website and then delve a little bit into events, social media, and others, such as, from my perspective, why email is the absolute best social network and a very underutilized marketing channel in general for distributing any sort of media you're able to put out. So with that, your website, let's start there. This is your digital self's base camp. It is where a lot of folks are going to go to look for how to pay you, to look for how to call you if they're interested in engaging you, to look at your firm to see if they want to join, because prospective employees also are vetting you at the same time. So a website, that is at the center of what you're doing for a lot of activities. So it is absolutely worth it to build one and build it right. And one thing that some folks will overlook, but others wisely pay attention to, is the search engine optimization of that website. Because even though it is changing with younger generations, most folks' journeys online start with a search engine. So if you properly set up your website, you will make the search engine gods happy. You will show up high in results for prospective clients looking for a certain type of lawyer, and you will look good by owning that real estate in search engines there, which then goes into, owned versus rented real estate. Your website is largely owned. Very hard for folks to take that away from you, whereas rented real estate, such as Facebook groups and profiles, others, they can throttle your traffic with algorithm updates. Your website, you can always hand out a business card and people will go there. Google search engine optimization, they might change the algorithm. That might drop you, will lift you up in the rankings. Something a little bit outside your control relative to the website, which is largely in your control. So then delve in deeper into social media, which is a credibility booster. It is something that feels very good when you have a post that's recognized by people, liked, reshared, things like that. But who doesn't like that vanity that comes with that, and understanding that credibility from those profiles existing is becoming more and more essential. So those things are good, but it depends. It always depends on what your practice area is. You can't eat likes. You can't eat video views. You need to get paid from some of this work that you're putting into it. Social networks, they want a lot of attention. They are built in ways, the algorithms are designed in ways to keep you coming back, to keep you on that site. So the time investment relative to what kind of return on investment you get, it's often very low for many practice areas. Again, exceptions, some practice areas absolutely thrive with very good prospective clients coming from social media. But I would encourage most folks to not put too much stock there, because again, email. Now there's something where people take action. They don't dwell in there long, but when they are in email, they take action. They make payments, they file documents, share documents. They do real work in email. So if you can have your promotion of your media through email, there's nothing better than that. And that goes back to making sure you have a system that's organizing your contacts the right way so you can share with your evangelists about annual summer party. You can follow up with prospective clients who have gone cold there. Email, there's nothing that beats that, in my opinion, for quote-unquote social networks. And then amplifying farther with advertising is always good too. There's a lot of different ways to find the right niche that aligns with your law firm that will bring in the right clients for you, from Google ads, Facebook ads, Bing ads, ads in direct mail, ads sponsored in newsletters. There's a lot of different ways to incorporate advertising into your media promotion strategy. And so with that event, as we all know and love, especially for the folks going to MSBA's annual legal summit here in Ocean City, people matter the most, and getting folks together for serendipitous events and conversations that are otherwise, obstructed by digital barriers. Nothing beats it. And you even can do events digitally, and there's a lot of value to those too. So people matter the most. Systems, they're great for supporting people, but people are at the heart of what we do, whether it's clients, team members, or even yourself. So people matter the most. Go to events, shake some hands, and add them to your CRM. With that, we're going to jump over to knowledge management. Because again, you're hopefully growing your firm with the right people. You are organizing all the contacts, all the folks you know in the right way. And so now with the work starting to roll in from some of the media management and getting some of those promotions out there, you've got to make sure things are done according to your standard. And again, some things like tasks and task template lists will help you there. But knowledge management, to look at it squarely, there are supplemental systems you can use that will go a little bit beyond something like Clio and their task list. And you'll be able to put together templates, document processes, and really put in stone the culture that you want everyone at your firm to be following. So with templates, again, Clio, task templates, absolutely do it. There's no good reason not to do it. You're not going to get it right the first time. It's going to be a little bit annoying, but if you get it right, there's nothing that's going to make delegation easier, more consistent quality of work than putting it together those task lists. So with that, moving over to processes, which are going to be more detailed than task lists. Task lists are those reminders, those milestones for where you are in a certain part of a matter, and then what you want yourself, others on the team to do. So process documentation there. This is something that it's great when you get it right, but it does require time. You got to write it down to folks, but then when you write it down to folks, it's easy to have them understand that you've provided notice. This is the way we need to save our files. You cannot share something with a client this way. You need to record it in our matter management system according to these standards. So writing down your processes, I like to keep it very simple because again, it can be time consuming. They have to be updated and maintained. So everyone wants to build, no one wants to maintain. For process management, maintenance is always the biggest thing for me, so shorter the better. And I start with a big idea, list a couple core important concepts, and then I do a walkthrough, often with just a video accompaniment. Like Loom.com provides a very easy way to record what you're doing on a screen rather than typing out the step-by-step instructions, including screenshots where the actual user interface might change in 6 months, 12 months, and render your process kind of moot there. So Loom.com, really good tool to supplement writing down your processes, storing it in your file management system, which we get to. There's other good tools like Notion, and even do SharePoint as well, but I wouldn't recommend that. So legal research, that's one that is absolutely worth documenting if you had to pick one process there. The better legal research, the more efficient legal research, the better the outcomes, the more client-centric you're going to be there. So some best practices are universal, like Boolean search operators. Some are going to be specific to the software that you use, Westlaw versus LexisNexis. And then Fastcase, I would recommend that, even though it is a little bit different. And taking it even farther, judicial analytics. There's a lot of great tools that offer that. So tons of different ways to do legal research, lots of different software suites. And some people are going to be more apt to it. Carl loves doing legal research. So let's make sure everyone knows. If you need some help, talk to Carl. And then let's have Carl do some light documentation in terms of what makes it easiest for him. So that if somebody else does want to do it on their own, they can use some of Carl's best practices. And then, as we've talked about, core values and how those relate to culture overall. What is it? It's the way I like to think of culture. It's the firm's collective default settings, their go-tos, tolerance for risk. It's how they operate if there's no additional interference from a client request, a supervisor request, anyone there. So your culture, it's your default, how things generally happen there, and being able to put a thumb on the scale to make sure they're adhering to your core values, doing the things the right way. That's going to make for a very positive culture. And to reinforce that public acknowledgement of your team, their successes, the preferences they've helped develop, that's going to be what cements that culture. What are you explicitly speaking to, publicly acknowledging from your team in terms of successes and even failures that others can learn from, emulate, and hear time and time again? So explicit, consistent reminders with the team. And I would strongly recommend, outside of core values, all hands meetings, doing those at least quarterly, even if you got a small group. It means a lot. And sometimes what you think you've said, you haven't said clearly enough or explicitly enough. And so repeating it at an all hands meeting, very, very valuable. So now with file management, we're going to talk through, defining a process for that, because locating a file in kind of the heat of something, if it's not named right, you're kicking yourself and everyone else who is involved with that. So defining that process, integrating with tools, and then most important of all, staying secure with your client's information. So for files, you got to use a cloud-based system. If you're not using a cloud-based system right now, there's really no reason to be primarily paper files. It's just going to make everything harder than it has to be, even if that is your preference. Again, you can be secondarily paper files driven, but to be primarily paper files driven at this year of 2024, it is going to be a deterrent for recruiting. It is going to be inefficiencies for working with clients. There's no good reason to be scared of a cloud-based system. So with that, how do you get to that if you're not there? How do you keep doing that? Because paper copies of things still come to you all the time, no matter what your preference, whatever you're primarily focused on. So scanning. If something comes into the office, it is scanned first and foremost. Then it can be put into a filing room. It can be taken to a desk. But the first thing any single document that comes into your firm does is be scanned. It's just that simple. And even from email attachments, you can file those away. And then the thing that I have a pet peeve for is naming conventions and how you store those in file architecture. So be thoughtful about that. Lots of different ways you can do it. But if you let your file systems get sloppy, it just becomes harder and harder to get them in a good working order. That again is going to be client-centric and efficient for your team. So with that, you got your files scanned in, you got them named and stored the right way. Now, let's make sure that you're integrating it with something. Again, a good matter management system is going to have some good integrations. Microsoft Word, instead of WordPerfect, which I totally get, it's got some valuable legacy features in terms of control of a document, but it doesn't play nice with enough. And the nice to have features for control of the document, they do not outweigh the need for working within a collaborative file system that does have integrations. It's just not a good excuse to be using something that doesn't play nicely with others. Again, you can try and be your own island. You can draw on whatever willpower reservoir you might have to go against the grain and do things how you've always done them. But if you want to grow your firm, if you want to bring on new folks, that is going to be an impediment. Use good software that plays nice with others. And then with that, these integrations, these things that we're doing here, keep it simple, keep it easy. Don't develop crazy client codes. Again, software can do that for you. Bulk update if you ever want to make a change. Keep things simple. Know that search bars are going to be how you find a lot of stuff. And so with that, the security aspect of it now, integrating with things, playing nice with others can sound scary. But if you use basic security hygiene like you should be, there really isn't anything to worry too much about. When I talk about basic security hygiene, it's going to be two-factor authorization or password keys, as they're now pushing. Hardware keys are my personal preference. A password manager is also absolutely essential. Sharing spreadsheet passwords, please don't do that. Happy to help you with a password manager there. Administrative policies at a global level within sub-organizations, and then offboarding and exit interviews. Great opportunities to find out where some security threats are, because as they say with locks, there's no impenetrable lock. There's just ones that take longer to crack. But if you use some basic security hygiene, then your locks are going to be pretty darn tough there. And with security, you're going to run into this, so don't be surprised, but security is inconvenient. It's a feature, not a bug. Adding a lock on your front door of your house, it adds inconvenience. You got to have a key now. It takes you time to unlock that. But that's a feature. It keeps a lot of folks out. You won't get robbed because you have that lock on your house. So for your firm, you absolutely should have some locks in place. And again, two-factor authentication, hardware key, password manager. Those are the types of things that you should be doing there. And again, with that, you can go very complex and get into VPN territory, which may or may not be necessary. But sometimes you can There's a tendency to overcomplicate. So I urge you to keep it simple so that you can focus on the work and not fumbling around with too many locks. Okay, communication systems. We've talked about how some of these other existing ones, Matter Management, CRM, and others, can help with that. We talked about all hands meetings. That's going to be PowerPoint, Teams, and email to get folks on the same page. Let them know, join here. We're going to talk about this. Here's some things to walk away with. Intranet, again, that goes a little bit with knowledge management too. Something like Notion to store processes in a sacred place. If you use some good, inexpensive tools for intranets like Notion, you can get perfect notice for people who are just joining the team and needing to know what the standards are, and you can have an easy, sacred place for people to store new things that are learned and need to be documented and shared. Emails are temporal. You will lose emails. People who join after an email is sent will not have an email. Email is good as a supplement, but it's, again, temporal. So with that, chat, that's something else that comes up a lot. You got that through Teams, you got it through Slack. Google Workspace has Google Chat. So those are very valuable. And again, as our industry changes hands with different generations, that's going to become more and more important. Setting boundaries is going to be of the utmost importance, because you can use do not disturb. You can reinforce process in terms of if it's immediate, chat's acceptable. If it's not immediate, use email. Use the matter management system to document what needs to be done. Chat can be abused, but chat is invaluable if you're using it right. And so then going outside the organization or even inter-organization, webinars and events. Talked a little bit about those, but you can use systems like Zoom, Google Meet, Teams again to set up these spaces where folks can join. And CLEs, a lot of folks will be joining those types of online events, but having less formal discussions with like-minded folks can really help you get through common challenges and towards solutions there. And then external reputation management in terms of communications there. Make sure you're regularly asking satisfied clients for reviews, because that's going to be one of the things that a prospective client will check. Yelp, Google Business, Avvo, FindLaw, they're going to look and see what others are saying about you there. And that's the unfortunate truth that the most frustrated folks, whether it's your fault or not, are going to be most likely to leave those reviews. So to preempt any dissatisfied client that was, outside your control, getting good reviews ahead of time is going to be the best way to combat that. Okay, so now to finish with productivity systems to help you execute and to eventually automate some of the rote work that you or admin are doing there. So all the strategy in the world, all this stuff sounds really good, but you got to execute on it and take it one bite at a time. And so with that, how you get things done, it matters. Again, using a matter management system, great for managing those matters. You might want to have a separate system for internal items to make sure that anyone working on non-client work, it's logged somewhere and it's being collaborated on there. So with automation, machine learning, AI, a lot has happened in the last couple of years, but it's still not displacing the core fundamental things you can do, should be doing for yourself, and most importantly, can be automating to be more efficient for clients. So artificial intelligence, it's not what they keep making it out to be. There's other automation tools that are very simple, that are in things like Clio, that can absolutely make an immediate impact on your life. Artificial intelligence, generative, you can squeeze some good stuff out of that, but by and large, what you can get immediate long-lasting value from is just basic system setups and really configurations to suit what your firm is like. So you can go crazy with it. Again, stay simple and then refine from there. Now, before we conclude today's session, I have two very special guests that I am thrilled to be introducing to you. We will be speaking soon here with President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. They will be talking to us today about their tips and tricks for staying productive in old age, file management, and so much more. So without further ado, let's bring them on. With human and genuine intelligence finally in harmony, after we've learned so many lessons through trials and tribulations, most of all through an exertion of genuine intelligence, we found ourselves in a wonderful world of productivity, where we've learned what humans do best and what we can leave for the machines to do. Human time is very expensive. It's the one thing that we can't get back, we can't buy more of. But for machines, automation, compute time, we can leverage that more and more to give ourselves as humans more time. So if you haven't taken some of these tips to heart for your law firm, and I strongly suggest that you do that, because the next years, decades, are going to be a very turbulent time for those who don't properly embrace what can make their lives better, what can make their clients' lives easier. Wow, that was absolutely riveting discussion from our special guests. I hope that you have found this time equally valuable. I'm extremely grateful for you sharing your time with me for this program to learn more about how to scale a law firm and stay client-centric. Thank you again for your time, and I look forward to working with you all to build something better than ever.